When the coffin is lowered into the ground, what is the soul seeing at that exact moment? Not before, not after. That moment. The ropes going slack. The wood disappearing below the edge of the earth. The sound of soil. The faces of the people standing above, some crying, some staring, some looking away because they cannot bear to watch. What does the soul see when that happens? That is the question. That is the only question this video is here to answer. And if you are watching this because you have lost someone, a mother, a father, a child, a friend, and you have stood at a graveside and felt that question pressing against your ribs like something you could not swallow and could not release, then you are in the right place. Because Padre Pio, one of the most extraordinary mystics the Catholic Church has ever known, did not shy away from this. He answered it, not theoretically, from experience. He spoke with souls. He witnessed what happens on the other side of death. And what he described about the moment of burial is something most people have never heard, because most people never think to ask the question this specifically. Stay until the end. Because what Padre Pio revealed builds, and the final piece of it may be the thing you most need to hear today. Before we begin, if you have someone you love who has already passed, write their name in the comments, just their name. That small gesture is already a prayer. To understand why Padre Pio's words carry the weight they do, you need to understand who he actually was. He was not a theologian working from books. He was a man who lived at the edge of the visible world and regularly crossed into what lies beyond it. For 50 years, he bore the stigmata, the wounds of Christ in his hands, his feet, his side. Medically documented, never explained. Padre Pio himself rarely spoke of it. He covered his hands and kept serving. He was known to bilocate, to appear in two places simultaneously. People received visits from him during moments of crisis, while he was confirmed to be hundreds of miles away at his monastery in San Giovanni Rotondo. He read souls in the confessional with a precision that left people shaking, naming sins that had never been spoken aloud, from decades buried in silence. And he knew the dead. Not as a figure of speech, he described souls from purgatory appearing to him, speaking to him, asking for prayers and masses offered in their names. He prayed for them with the same regularity and seriousness that he prayed for the living. He wept for them. He told the people around him repeatedly that the dead are closer than we imagine, and that they are more aware of us than we are of them. This is the man speaking when we ask what the soul sees during burial. Not someone offering comfort, someone reporting what he witnessed. And what he witnessed does not begin at the graveside. It begins the moment the body goes still. The heart stops, the breath ends. And something that had been compressed, filtered, and muffled by decades of physical existence suddenly finds itself without walls. That is the closest human language can come to describing what Padre Pio and the Catholic mystical tradition consistently point toward in those first moments after death. The soul does not fade. It does not go dark. It expands into a clarity it has never experienced before, because every moment of earthly life, the body was creating interference. Pain, exhaustion, hunger, distraction, the relentless noise of physical existence pulling attention toward itself. And then, in an instant, all of that is gone. What remains is awareness, pure, unfiltered, startlingly awake awareness. The soul finds itself more conscious in that first moment after death than it was at any point during life. And the first thing it registers is the room. Spiritual accounts rooted in Catholic tradition describe a period immediately following death in which the soul remains close to its physical remains, not trapped, not lost, present, the way a person stands in a doorway before stepping through. The soul can perceive what is happening around the body, the grief of the people gathered, the prayers being whispered, the hands reaching out to touch a face that can no longer respond, the flowers, the candles, the silence between the sobs. Padre Pio was asked once whether the dead can hear the prayers of the living. He said yes. He said a single Hail Mary prayed with genuine love in front of a coffin reaches that soul the way sunlight reaches skin after a long winter. Warm, unmistakable, real, which means that every prayer said at a wake, every rosary offered over a coffin, Every quiet word spoken to someone who appears to no longer be listening is actually heard, fully, clearly, with a depth of understanding that the living cannot yet access. But the soul is not only receiving. In those first hours it is also seeing, and what it sees is not only the room around it, it sees itself. This is the part that Padre Pio returned to more than any other when he spoke about the moments following death. The soul, freed from the noise and the self-protective fog of physical life, encounters the full truth of itself for the first time. Not the version it presented to the world, not the carefully edited story it told itself to make difficult choices easier to live with. The real version, every act of genuine love, seen. Every moment of patient endurance that no one witnessed, seen. Every quiet sacrifice, every prayer said in the dark, every time it chose rightly when choosing wrongly would have been easier. All of it, visible, luminous, weightless. And also, the other things. The words spoken in anger that were never taken back. The reconciliations that were postponed until postponing was no longer possible. The faith that was always meant for later. The confession that was scheduled for next month, next year, when things settled down. The soul sees all of it simultaneously, with complete honesty, without the mercy of selective memory. For some, that vision brings immediate peace, a deep settling recognition that despite all the failures, despite all the imperfection, the direction of the life was right. The love was real, the effort was sincere, and God, who sees everything, saw that. For others, it brings a pain that is not punishment, but recognition. The grief of understanding with absolute clarity what was left unfinished. Padre Pio described this not as condemnation, but as the beginning of mercy. Because to see the truth about oneself without illusion is the first step toward being made whole. And it is in this state, awake, clear, carrying either peace or the weight of what was left undone, that the soul moves toward the burial. Now we arrive at the center of the question, the funeral, the church if there is one, the prayers, the incense, the familiar faces marked by grief, and then the graveside. Picture it from the other side. The soul is present for all of it, not watching from a distance, not hovering in the way of a ghost story, present in the way that consciousness is present, aware, perceiving, understanding. It hears the prayers said over its body. It feels the love of the people gathered. It witnesses every gesture, the hand placed on the shoulder of someone who is struggling, the child who does not fully understand what is happening, the person standing at the edge of the crowd who came despite everything, despite the years of distance and silence, because something made them come. The soul sees the intentions behind the gestures, not just the surface of what people do, but why they are doing it. The love underneath the awkward words, the grief underneath the composed expression. Padre Pio indicated that the soul, in this state of heightened clarity, perceives the people it loved with a depth and tenderness that was not always available to it in life, because in life, the body and its needs and its wounds and its pride were always in the way. And then, the burial itself, the coffin moving, the ropes, the descent. According to Padre Pio and the broader tradition he inhabited, this moment carries a specific and distinct spiritual weight. It is the moment of formal separation from physical existence. Every other moment between death and burial still held some proximity to the earthly world. The body still visible, the mourners still gathered, the space between the living and the dead still bridged by presence. The burial closes that bridge, and what the soul experiences in that closing depends entirely on what it is carrying. For a soul in a state of grace, a soul that lived with genuine faith, that returned to God through confession and prayer, and the honest effort to love despite its own limitations, the descent of the coffin is experienced as release. Not loss, not loneliness, release. The way the last page of a long book feels when the story was worth reading. The way the end of a difficult journey feels when home is in sight. Padre Pio described it with an image that stays with you. He said that for such a soul, the burial is the closing of a chapter, and the soul, watching it happen, feels something like gratitude. Gratitude that the journey was made. Gratitude for the people standing above. weeping, loving, praying, and a peace that is not resignation, but arrival. The understanding finally complete and unobstructed that everything that happened in that life was held, was seen, was known, and was enough. But for a soul arriving at that moment carrying unresolved weight, the soul that kept meaning to return to God and simply ran out of time, the closing of the coffin carries a sharper awareness, not despair, but the acute recognition of what was left undone, the prayers not prayed, the return to God that was always planned and never executed, the sacraments received carelessly or not received at all. That soul witnesses the burial with a grief that is entirely honest, a grief for the self, for the time that cannot now be recovered, for the preparation that was delayed one season too many. And yet even here, Padre Pio was absolutely clear on this, even here God's mercy is present. The door is not closed, but the road ahead is longer than it needed to be, and the prayers of the living are one of the most powerful forces that can shorten it. This is where Padre Pio's teaching stops being about death and starts being about right now. He did not teach passive grief. He did not instruct people to mourn and move forward and let the dead be dead. He taught something that the modern world has almost entirely forgotten, that the relationship between the living and the dead is not ended by a funeral. It is transformed, and that transformation creates a real responsibility. He described souls in purgatory approaching him in the night, not as frightening apparitions, as people. Souls he recognized, souls he had known in life, souls he had never met, but who came because they needed intercession. They asked for masses offered in their names. They asked for rosaries. They asked for small acts of charity dedicated to their intention. And when those prayers were offered, Padre Pio described a relief in those souls that he compared to cool water reaching someone who has been walking for days through heat. One soul in particular stayed with him, a man he had known, not especially devout, not a saint by any conventional measure, but a man who had carried a quiet and sincere love for God throughout his life, even when he didn't know how to express it. That man came to Padre Pio asking for a single mass. Padre Pio offered it, and the peace he witnessed in that soul afterward, he said, was one of the most consoling things he had ever seen. That man is most of us. Imperfect faith, inconsistent practice, a genuine love for God that never quite translated into the life we always intended to build. And the possibility that someone praying for us, someone offering a mass, a rosary, a simple act of love in our name, can bring real relief to our soul in that process of purification, should reshape entirely how we pray for those we have lost. Have you offered a mass for someone who has passed? Have you prayed the rosary with a specific person in mind, asking God to bring them rest? These are not sentimental gestures. They are, according to Padre Pio, acts of effective love that cross the boundary between the living and the dead and are felt, genuinely felt on the other side. If someone came to your mind just now, do not wait. Offer something for them today. A prayer said with intention, a mass requested in their name, a small sacrifice dedicated to their soul. Padre Pio said that no prayer for the dead is ever lost. Every single one arrives. But there is one more thing Padre Pio returned to consistently, and it is the thing that pulls all of this back into the present tense. The quality of what the soul experiences during burial is shaped almost entirely by the quality of the life that preceded it. And that life is happening right now. Not at some future point when faith feels more natural, or the schedule is less full, or the hard things have been resolved now. In this exact season, with all its incompleteness and imperfection and distraction, the soul that arrives at death having lived in a habitual relationship with God, through confession, through the Mass, through the daily attempt to love despite failing at it regularly, arrives at that threshold with something that cannot be assembled in a final moment. It arrives with familiarity, with a relationship built over years of ordinary, consistent, imperfect practice, with the kind of rootedness that does not depend on feeling spiritual, because it was formed through showing up when the feeling wasn't there. Padre Pio spoke about confession the way a doctor speaks about basic health maintenance, not as a dramatic intervention for crisis, but as a regular, necessary return to honesty, a repeated acknowledgement of where we have fallen short, a sincere request for mercy. a real intention to try again. He said that the soul which goes to confession frequently is a soul that is always in the process of turning back toward God, and that orientation, maintained over years, is what creates the peace that is visible in a soul at the moment of death. He spoke the same way about the rosary, about the Mass, about holy water in the home, not as superstition, but as a deliberate act of placing one's household under the care of God, about the brown scapular and the miraculous medal as outward signs of an inward commitment to Mary's intercession. These are simple things. They do not require extraordinary holiness. They require only consistency and sincerity. And they accumulate, quietly, invisibly, without drama, each one adding something to the soul that will only be fully visible on the other side, but that is being formed right now in the ordinary decisions of an ordinary day. So let us return one final time to the question, when the coffin is lowered into the ground, what is the soul seeing? It is seeing the people it loved, clearly. Without the distance that physical life always imposed, it is seeing their grief and feeling it not as helplessness, but as love. A love that it can now receive without deflection. It is perceiving their prayers as light. Literal warmth-bearing light, the way Padre Pio described it. Every Ave Maria, every whispered goodbye, every name spoken into the air at a graveside that felt like speaking into nothing, received completely, with a clarity the soul never had access to while it was still breathing. It is seeing its own life in full, with the honesty that only becomes possible when the need for self-protection is gone. The failures and the graces together, the moments of real love alongside the moments of missed opportunity. And it is understanding, perhaps for the first time without obstruction, that it was always held, that the mercy it hoped for was never conditional on perfection, that God who saw every moment of that life was present in all of it, even the parts the soul is not proud of, especially those. And as the earth closes over the coffin, the soul is not being buried, it is being released. The chapter is closing, the journey that the body made is complete, and what continues is something that no grave can contain: consciousness, love, the irreducible reality of a soul that was made for something larger than any human life can hold. Death is not the end. The burial is not abandonment. It is a beginning seen from both sides at once, mourned by the living and understood by the dead in a way that will only make sense to us when we arrive there ourselves. If this reflection brought someone to your mind, someone you have lost, someone you miss, someone you have not prayed for in a long time, let this be the moment you return to them. Write their name in the comments. Say a quiet word to God on their behalf. And if you can, have a Mass offered for them this week. Padre Pio said it himself, love does not end at death. It continues, it deepens, and every prayer you offer is felt. Write in the comments, Padre Pio, pray for the souls of all those I love. Let that be our prayer together today. And if this video gave you something real to carry, share it. Not because the number matters, but because somewhere there is a person standing at a graveside with this question pressed against their chest, and they have never heard it answered this way. One share can be the thing that reaches them. Leave a like, share this video. And if this community has become a place of genuine faith for you, consider becoming a member. Every gesture of support allows this work to continue. These reflections, these conversations, this effort to bring the teachings of Padre Pio to people who need them. We are not just a channel. We are a community gathered around the belief that faith, even in the face of death, is the most deeply human thing we have. Padre Pio said it plainly, and he said it often. Pray, hope, and don't worry. He was not asking us to pretend that grief does not hurt. He was telling us that underneath the hurt, underneath every question we carry to a graveside, there is a foundation that holds, that has always held, that will hold at the end when the only thing left is the truth of who we are and the mercy of the God who made us. That foundation does not move, even there, even then, especially then,